I am Jyothi. I have been with TCS for almost 23 plus years now, and in cybersecurity for around 18 plus years. So, why cybersecurity is important to all of you who are in startups, who are in doing businesses, who are dealing with this new technical platforms, right? New apps that we talk about, right? Lakshmi talked about an app which tells us where the nearby restroom is, right? We have to also think about whom all we will trust. The cybersecurity side always talks about trust. The other side of security is trust. So, how can we trust the data that Sujata talks about? Lot of data that is available, right? She also said the data being used for productive ways and the data being used for non-productive or malicious ways, right? We are seeing lot of incidents or lot of instances of people using data in malicious ways to create issues for other people, right? So what I wanted to talk about cybersecurity to this community of startup world and innovation world and all is that how do you set up, like Piali gave you the ABC of setting up an organization and how to grow and how to reach your dreams, right? So from my side, I would like to tell you how to configure your environment, right? How to configure your the area, the setup in such a way that you are safe in a cyber world as well as physical world. Physical safety again, Sujata touched upon a little bit, and we are going to talk about what we will do when we use Google Pay to accept payment, when we use Google Pay to make payment, when we use the internet portals to register ourselves, when we use to upload lot of things like channel IAM. You said you are doing lot of news thing, right? So in security we have three different factors for supporting an information, which is C, I and A. C is confidentiality, I is integrity, and A is availability. So how do you ensure your data is managed confidentially for what it requires, right? So that means you should define the level of confidentiality for your data, and you should put in controls to ensure that that is made secure. Like for example, if I keep my gold bangle and my watch, I will not keep both on the table, right? I will have a mechanism at home by which I will keep my watch on the table and my gold bangle inside the table drawer, right? So that way, whatever information that we are handling, the data that we are handling, we should have a way of labeling it, or we should have a way of assessing the value of it and protecting it accordingly. So we should know, we talked about intellectual property, right? We were talking about intellectual property earlier, about how the technology behind it, the all the efforts that has gone behind a product, that has gone behind a particular, outcome of the work that we are doing from our startup organization or from whichever organization that we are doing, right? Ambika ma'am also talked about how she had collaborated with Medimix and then with Ketra, and then she started her own products. So that her own products will have a specific IP, intellectual property. So that is something which we have to ensure that we are keeping it confidential. We are keeping it safe. That is where we have to register for these patents like trademarks, copyrights, right? So we should find it out and we should take the effort in registering for these IPs so that it remains with us, right? Nobody takes us for a ride. That is confidentiality. Now, what is integrity? Suppose we are in publishing thing. Integrity can be generally explained with that websites and publishing and all. So we all know that there are instances where people have hacked into websites and changed the information that is published in the websites, right? So how to ensure what is published is only given as read only and not for any modifications. That is what is called integrity. Now the third is availability. Now what is availability? When we walk into a ATM, it says ATM doesn't have cash or it is under maintenance, right? It shouldn't limit with that. It should also say that on this direction, after 200 meters, you have another ATM. That is availability. See, anytime money is something that has been given to us as a promise, saying that we offer you money not only during banking hours but always. So how does that availability help? So again, Facebook, Gmail, all these things, they have multiple backup servers. They have even mirrored servers. What do you mean by mirrored? The user will not even know that one server has gone down, the other is, you are hitting the other server. That is a mirrored server, right? So when we have to look at a backup mechanism for addressing availability, it is always a cost versus availability calculation. So you should again look at what can be your outage time. Accordingly, you have to build up your backup mechanisms to address availability. So the main factors of security, cyber security, C, I and A. There is one more A which comes with security, which is called accountability. Now what is accountability? Who does what at what time and who approves that is accountability. So there has to be always a trail of who has created it, who has authorized it, and who can take it back, who can revert it back to the previous position. So every technology gives us this facility. There can be delegations, there can be mechanisms of adding one more person with the access provisioning, right? So how do you ensure that your accountability, the data modification, who does what at what time is captured and how can you revert back, right? So these are the things that we have to look at. Now, how do we do all these things? For that, there are various standards, again, which are ISO standards, right? For payment cards, there is PCI DSS standards. For telecom, there is TL 9000 standards. For pharma, there is a standard. For medical areas, there is a standard, right? So we have to ensure whichever domain our business is functioning, we follow the security requirements of that domain as well, right? One of the things that generally heard is that small organizations, small startup organizations, or not even startup, small organizations, they may not have the process in place to scale up to ensure that whatever is done, capturing the best practices, right? There was a discussion on what was the best practices and all. So capturing that and ensuring that you are not reinventing the wheel. You know you have a process in place so that you can utilize it to prepare or to create the second edition of what you have done, right? So we should have processes in place for physical access, right? Wherever you are working, you should have a trail of access. Who has come in at what time? Who has left at what time? Right? And you should also have a training to everyone to say that there shouldn't be any tailgating. Nobody should open doors for anybody. Let everybody gain access and then come inside. Right? That's one thing. Second thing is, when Piali wanted to show the presentation, one security alert came. What does that mean? It means the system is not having antivirus updated on a daily basis as it is required, right? So we should have our systems hardened first, secure second. What do you mean by hardened? Suppose you are working in an area related to banking or financial services or hospitals and all, where the data confidentiality is high, or the privacy of the data is high in cases of hospitals and all. You should have controls to ensure you have a base image on your system. So anybody newly joining your organization will be given that base image in their system. Anything in addition, they have to raise a request, and whoever is the authorizing person has to authorize. And you should have a firewall in place, you should have an antivirus in place, right? You should have these mandatory requirements met in your system so that the system will not get impacted by a virus or by a data theft. We have seen enough movies. When somebody leaves the system, somebody else walks in with a pen drive and copies data, right? In a proper secure systems, USB drives are all blocked. CDs are all blocked. So when we are working in technology, we should understand that the basic minimum requirement is the right requirement. So we should start with what is minimum required for us, and anything else should be treated as privilege, and that has to come through request, right? So that is second. Now third, you recruit people, you take interns, you work with your partnering firms, your accelerators, all these people, right? The idea is yours. You have developed it into some, say, 75%. You're waiting for somebody's feedback on it. So how do you ensure the people that who you are talking with respects the IP of the product that you are dealing with, right? So if you take interns, if you take employees, you should have an agreement with them, what is called non-disclosure agreement. You should ask those people to sign an agreement saying, whatever you are coming to access while working in this role is owned by my organization, and you are just using it to build based on your knowledge, for which you get paid. See, whatever I am creating while as an employee of TCS is not mine. It is TCS's IP. I am working in TCS, so I have to sign an NDA saying that I understand that. I understand that whatever I prepare or whatever I create is not owned by me, and I cannot take it. I cannot use it for any other purposes or anything, right? Books have that copyright thing. You can't use it for, suppose I download a paper by paying, I download an e-book. There is a restriction on me to share that across because the book has got a copyright, right? Music. Initially all these MP3s came, and music was, it went through all unlicensed or what should I say? It was all piracy, just copied. Even now movies are shared through telegrams, right? People are using telegram apps to download movie and watch. So how to ensure that the usage guidelines are met? How to make others understand that this is your role, this is your responsibility, and this is your right, beyond which is not your right. So anything beyond that right you have to ask for and get it approved, right? So that is another thing. The physical security, the technology security by making the systems, the servers, the connectivity, right? Having auto failover backups, and the people security by making them sign NDAs, by doing background verifications, right? Most of the organizations now do background verification. At least a basic police clearance everybody asks, right? So we have to get that background verification done so that you know that I am Jyothi, right? I am coming and saying that I am Jyothi, but who knows that I am Jyothi or not? So that is one thing, again, what we have to do. Then very important thing. Put yourself into, again what Piali said, I'm just expanding, right? Put yourself into tests, like that bug bounty, like the hackathons and all those things, that even large players like Microsoft and IBM and all are making themselves available for bug bounties, because they know that vulnerabilities keep coming, find this issues keep coming. So somebody is trying to break it. Under our observations, we will know and we will be able to address it. But if somebody breaks it without our knowledge, then we will be caught unawares. All our data or all our system will be hacked. That is what is called hacking, right? So we have to ensure that we have all these processes put in place. As far as possible, have a policy, like along with the business profile or business policy that you are building up, you should have a policy which says what you do, how you do, and what are your guidelines to complete what you have said you will do, right? So these are the basic things that everybody should be knowing about security. Security is not a rocket science. It's just a simple common sense thing. So as I told you, I don't keep my watch and my bangle on the same place, right? It's the same thing. Security is nothing but using common sense to ensure that what we are putting effort for remains where we have to, right? It shouldn't be that like an Ambika Pillai could survive all those things, even if people took her for a ride multiple times, right? Every one of us may not be able to survive, right? Even after the banks, even after the BSNLs, even after the Airtels keep telling us that don't share your PIN, don't share your CVV, even now we hear news about how people's money is taken by fraudsters, right? So we have to be very careful when we deal with people. We have to be very careful when we deal with the assets that are asset. What is the value of my laptop? It's not the tangible value of laptop, which is like 50,000, 60,000. The value is the value of what is in my laptop, right? That is more valuable. That is why if I lose my mobile, I have a bigger problem. It is not only buying another mobile and replacing it. I have a bigger problem of what all apps are there, what all apps are not having any passwords. No, something which anybody can access into. This finger print opening is better than facial recognition. You know, I have one daughter, and whenever she comes in front of my phone thinks that it is me, and it opens, right? So don't keep your face as your password or any locking thing, because there is a limit for the algorithm to capture what looks like face. But a fingerprint is much better than a face, right? So we have to be very careful when we deal with our things, our valuables. Like I said, the value depends on, it can be notional value, it can be the asset value, it can be the value of replacing it, it can also be the intangibles which is on top, which is in that, right? Somebody steals my almara. Is it only the almara that I have to replace? No, right? The contents in the almara also. So that is what we have to clearly look at. Again, when you follow a process, a policy, make yourself subject to some compliance also. See, that's what we say, governance and compliance. Any task that we do should have a governance mechanism, right? Without which Lakshmi couldn't have scaled up to this much of toilers. So she said she has a mechanism of saying how to qualify to register in that as a service provider, right? So you should have a checklist, you should have a documentation saying that this is what I do, this is how I do, and I am open to scrutiny of you verifying to see whether I follow those guidelines. Right? That is what again we have to do. Like we keep seeing about this food safety people going and checking the hotels. Why they don't do it every time? They do it only when some issue happens. Right? So we shouldn't be like that. We should always be, this should be a proactive mechanism and not a reactive mechanism. So we should do it to prevent such issues from occurring, rather than wait for an issue to occur and then try to come out with a corrective action. Right? So we should have a mechanism of governance wherein we create some reports, we have some meetings where we present our these things, right? So again, Piali was talking about the quarterly numbers, the dashboards, how we do, whom we have to present. So there is always a governance mechanism of whom we are reporting to, or who are the stakeholders, who are the end users. That is all there in our environment, right? So we have to just ensure that we capture the key performance indicators and we keep reporting so that we avoid any security issues, any incidents, any thefts, any data being taken and all that. Now, along with security, privacy is a very important thing, right? Data protection. So what is today's most valuable information is personally identifiable information, right? We don't have that culture of keeping our personally identifiable information as a secret. If I go to a hospital or if I come to any reception, people say, you give me your email ID, your phone number. Or in a hospital, that receptionist will be busy. She will say, you tell me your phone number. There will be 10-15 people listening to me when I shout out my phone number, right? So we we Indians, we don't have the culture or the habit in us to keep our data secure. When I travel in train, there will be 3 people sitting with me, and by the end of the journey, all of them will know everything about me. My family, my background, my financial background, where all I have traveled, right? And we have seen cases of burglary at homes, where people publish saying that for 1 week I am in Goa in Facebook, and somebody goes there and takes all their things and go, right? So what we have to do is we have to bring in the culture of security. People may ask, again, there will be a lot of questions, like at my house they ask always, are you always a security person? You ask so many questions when people don't even think of one question. Yes, I ask questions because that has gone into my blood. So you should also get the habit of asking questions before sharing any data, before giving any information about us, about anybody else for that matter, right? So we have to put all these things in our day-to-day task, day-to-day happenings, everything, so that we have what we are thriving for, what we are putting effort for. We are working hard to reach where we want to reach, right? I always remember about a story that a novel that I have read of Irving Wallace, I think, or Sidney Sheldon, one of them. So there, the hero, every day morning he stands in front of the mirror and he looks at himself. When he looks at himself, he sees where he wants, when I am standing in front of the mirror, I see myself as the person whom I want to be, right? And every day he looks at the gaps, and then every day he works towards addressing those gaps. So like that, we do that to reach this place. Again, like what Sujata said, we are part of that 1% people who have reached this much. So we should be really careful, diligent about how we are addressing, how we are reaching out to all these things, right? And again, when I was talking to Nisha, we were just discussing about the percentage of women in this area, security area. And it is really less. Actually, there are, like you said, there are many people, but there is only one woman and all. Like that is my case most of the times. We have, many a time, we have this customer audits in TCS. And some of the customers come and they say, I want to see what is above this false ceiling. I want to see what is below this to see whether there will be any security issues, right? So many a time I have had to put a ladder and climb up and push that false ceiling and show them and then check that also, right? Many a time I have done that. And many times after these audits, there will be always dinners where there will be some 7-8 gentlemen who will be drinking, eating and all, and I will be the only person. And I will be so tired, I will be half asleep most of the time. I don't even listen to what they talk. But this is a very challenging area. And this is becoming more and more important on a day-to-day basis. So we have to, when we develop a product, the way we code, also there are a lot of processes coming up, standards coming up, right? There is something called application security. So we have to ensure that for cryptography, this is what it is. Comments have to be like this. Privileges have to be like this. There shouldn't be a denial of service, right? There are so many things that are there. So I would say that this is a very good area where we can focus on. Let it be the he part or the she part or whoever. It's a very interesting and challenging area. And every day is full of challenges. What you see today, you wouldn't have seen all these days. It will be a new challenge. What I have seen some days back and I have closed it with some corrective action, that will never come back. So my learnings, even though I capture those learnings, I may not have an opportunity to reuse that learning. But I will have other challenge, other new issues coming up. But that makes me always be careful about my environment, to see what I have to look at, to focus on how to make my product more secure, more safe, right? I shouldn't be having a product or an application which actually does not work the way I want it to work, or it works and gives some more details than what it is required to do, right? So when we started with all these portals, websites and all, we log in, right? And then we give a back arrow or we refresh and all. It always used to stay there. But now only there are all these processes brought in to prevent that back arrow throwing you out, or rather making, to prevent that staying on, to have a session closure whenever a refresh or a back arrow or things are being done. So like that, new issues come. All of us would have heard about WannaCry, right? WannaCry was that ransomware which hit the whole industry in 2019. Then there was additional issues like PETA, and now recently there was a virus or a ransomware. I forgot the name. Okay, anyway. So that keeps coming. New issues keep coming. How that worm moves or comes into various areas and affect our applications or the system or the hardware or the mobile that we use and all, it is very important for all of us to know, right? We should know it as entrepreneurs, we should know it as technology people, and we should also know it as common man, right? As a common man, I should know what all I should access. I shouldn't be downloading every app into my mobile, right? There are so many things that promises so much, but I should look at it. Now Google Play Store and Apple Store and all, they have a mechanism of saying these are protected. This is Play Store Protect. So we have to look at how many people have downloaded, what is the feedback, and even if I remove it, right, does any residue remain in my system, right? There are many applications, many mobile apps which ask for a lot of permissions, and it automatically takes permissions, right? Nowadays it says that I want to have permission to your contacts, your messages, your camera, your files. Why? Why we should give permission to all these things? And suddenly we will never know, right? There are applications which run our camera behind us without us knowing. There are issues that are happening. There are applications which switch on our mic without us knowing, if we give permission to that, right? And there are applications which, when working along with another application, it becomes a very deadly application. So we should read about it. Today, information is available to all of us. Google Raja is there, right? So we just have to look at what we are going to do, to take the inputs from that and then make a decision, a calculated decision on, do I need it or do I not? Right? I keep fighting with my husband every time. He downloads all apps. Whenever somebody says this app will make it easy, he downloads it. So I have now told him, you have 2 mobiles. In one you keep all your bank accounts, your card accounts, your DigiLocker, everything. You try with new apps in another mobile, right? Keep that separate. Now again, there is a problem. Like 2 days back, I saw a Telugu movie. I keep watching all sort of movies when I have to take a break from my work. So that was about a theft, or rather, people were killed. So when they wanted to find out who killed, the 4 or 5 people were connected with one service engineer, and that service engineer had come to address tickets to correct the modem of the broadband at each one of their houses. And using that, he is creating a user in that modem, right? And he is accessing all the data, and he is doing a lot of things. I am part of one group called ISACA. It is called ISACA. It's an information security based professional body, global body. There is another group called IEEE again. Both these places in ISACA, they have a program called She Leads Tech. So I am part of that, and from Trivandrum chapter, I am the lead for She Leads Tech. And in IEEE, we have a group called Women in Engineering. We have a seminar coming up by end of July in Trivandrum, International Leadership Seminar. So we have to be careful. So we say that this ISO for security has got some 11 domains in which we have to look at that physical access, this HR with respect to training people on what they should do, what they shouldn't do, what is an incident, what can be a disciplinary action, right? And then the communication and networks, where I told you about firewalls, antivirus, and hardening a system, and change request, elevating privileges, all those things. Then availability that we talked about. Compliance, we have to do some reviews, audits in between, internal audits. Call a peer and ask the peer to do a peer review or a peer audit. Then you will know where you are going. Are you going wrong anywhere, right? So all these things are to be built into the framework of what we are doing today in addressing business problems, in providing innovative solutions, in providing solutions which will make the life of so many people easy, right? So that is what I wanted to